ያለችው I am the girl that grew up without a father. I am the girl that doesn't know how my father looks like. I'm the girl that doesn't know what father's love looks like. I am the girl that grew up in different families because my mom couldn't afford raising me. I am the girl that was always told I'm wrong even when I was right. I'm the girl who was very unfortunate. But here is the trick. No one is going to come to save you. You have to save yourself by changing your mindset. Hi everyone, my name is Lucky. I'm from Uganda and I'm here to share my experience as a girl, how I grew up, and why I'm who I am right now. What did I do to reach this step? I was a disadvantaged kid. We are 6 of us in our family. My mom and dad separated when I was just a year old. I am the girl whose dad was not present in my life. My mom did not have money to raise us. And I am the girl that grew up in different families. I grew up from my auntie's family. I grew up from my uncle's home. I grew up at my grandmother's house. I grew up in different people's hands, and those were all experiences, both good and bad. When my mom left my dad, we were homeless, the 6 of us. My mom and us, the children, had nowhere to stay. She had no option than take us to her mother's house, who is also our grandmother. Our grandmother raised us. She fed us, took care of us like any other grandmother would do. I love her so much. However, like anything, this also had very many disadvantages. Staying at our grandmother's house meant that people are going to despise us, meant that people are going to call us homeless, meant that people are going to call us beggars. That is the environment I grew up in. I did not know that I was this powerful. I did not know anything about having freedom. I was raised to be inferior. I was raised in an environment that made me feel like I am always the last one. I was raised in a very toxic environment. My mother loved us. My mother was abused. My mother was despised. They called her all sorts of names. They called us bastards. They called us homeless, like I said. And my mom did not give up. She stayed with us. She did not remarry. She raised the 6 of us. I am the last born and I'm 23 years old. Each of us has standard. All my siblings know how to write their names, at least. All of them, they have graduated, they have gotten jobs, and some of them are now married with their own families, doing really, really better than how people thought we were going to turn out. Back to my story. Growing up, when I started school, my school fees was being paid by an orphanage organization or helping organization. It was called Shinamagara Ministry, and that was in Kawali District. It paid my school fees for 7 years, and that was all my primary life. I'm so grateful for that. After 7 years in primary school, I performed well. I was the first in our school with very good grades. And that is where my uncle, my mother's brother, took me from. She brought me to Kampala City. As a village girl, I knew nothing. I was really excited coming from the village where there was no food, where there were no clothing, where people despised us, to the city was a very huge dream for me that came true. However, it was not beds and roses. When I reached Kampala City, he told me I was going to stay with him. Plus, his wife. That sounded like a good idea, and I loved it so much. But that also came with consequences that I'm not going to share here. But if you ever lived in someone else's house, you know it's not an easy thing. You know what transpires in those houses. But still, I'm grateful for the experience, for everything I got from there. After my school, I joined secondary school. In my first year in school, I did not know how people lived very luxuriously. I joined a pretty decent school, and this was a school where kids had money. This was a school where kids had money, like a lot of money. Their parents gave them a lot of stuff. But I was the student that always never had money for breakfast. I was the student that always never had soap. I was the student that always had to beg for sanitary towels. I was the student that always had to eat leftovers for breakfast. But also, on the brighter side, I was the bright student. I was a very good performer. I was mocked. I was laughed at. I was called all sorts of names. Remember, I was from the village. I did not know anything about city life. It was just me, that village girl, and I came with my excitement. But the world was not ready for the excitement. The world was rude. The world was brutal. And the world called me all sorts of names. The world told me I was not ready. During my holiday for senior 4, I was working at a gas station. At this point, as in 2019, I was working at a gas station and I was getting very little pay. However, I had to feed myself, house myself, clothe myself. I had to do everything for myself. Mind you, I wasn't even 20 years yet. The little money I earned, I bought a home. Also with my mom, part of it, because she's who I was working for. I worked at that gas station for 1 month, and reporting time was approaching. That is when I joined A level. My uncle chose for me a really good school. It was a very, very prestigious school, expensive school here in the city. And again, this was a new experience for me. It was a dream come true. It was a school I always heard of. It was a school I never thought I would join because it was that big. I was so excited. Reporting time came. I was taken to school by my brother, who was always there for me. But reality hit when he left. The discrimination in that school was more than that was in my previous one. This is a school that had ministers' children. This is a school where the president's kids could go to. This is a school that had a lot of rich people. That is where all the trauma came from. In this school, I was traumatized, but I was focused as well. I always told myself to focus on what took me to school, that was to study. But as a child, you have those thoughts in the back of your mind. Remember, in all these years, my dad had never supported me, had never given me, even if it was a single coin, not even a book or a pen. So at the back of my mind, I always had that question of, why me? Why did my dad choose to do this to us? Or why is it me that is in this situation? In that school, it was trauma. That school had a lot of bullies. I was bullied. I was called names. And what always hit me hard was visitation days where parents come and visit their children at school. I was the child that was never visited. If I had a chance, it was always my brother, and I thank him for always coming. He had never missed a single visitation at my school. Much as I was always excited to see him, but I also had questions. As someone who did not ask for this, I always wondered, where is my dad? Why did God choose me or my mom? I was now mature enough, so I started realizing that the world can really be rude even when you're innocent. I always wished that maybe if my dad was around, things couldn't be the way they were. And the worst part of it was, it is not that he's dead, he's alive, not in any other country, in the same country as I am, but he just decided not to look for us, his kids. That always triggered me so bad. I was the kid that acted excited on visitation days in front of other students, but then went undercovers and cried. I became a crier that I never knew I was. Anything small could trigger me. Anything little could trigger me. And at that moment, I think I was really traumatized. I lost morale. I lost the zeal to study. I felt like I wasn't worth living. I felt like if I die, who will cry? If I'm not around, who will miss me? After all, what am I doing? Which role am I playing here on earth? I was really, really, really very suicidal. I'm going to be honest. But thank God, I joined guidance and counseling, and I shared with someone I really trusted at school, and she gave me the counseling I needed. I managed to complete the 2 years I had for A-level. When I finished my exams, I did not go to my uncle's house. I went straight to the village to my mom, because that is where it felt like home. Mind you, I was the kid that was never ever excited about holidays. Not because I was not excited, but because I didn't have a home. I wasn't going home. I was going to other people's homes. That is what. And I always wish that maybe if I had like my mother's house or my father's house that I could go to, maybe things would be different. Maybe people would have treated me differently, because now they would know that I don't have to bother them in their rooms. So after my exams, I went back home. And now this was a very long holiday. It was a holiday for around 8 months. And when I left the city to my village, I was really excited. It felt like I was myself again. It felt like I was going home because I was going to my mom, even though it was in the village. but I felt really, really good about it than being in the city. Stayed with my mom for about 1 month, and the next month I started looking for jobs. Within me, I knew that I was destined for greatness, and I knew that much as I had trauma from the things I couldn't control, I was never going to let those things define who I am and who I was going to become. So I started searching for jobs. Now that was also another hustle. I wrote over 50 applications. Mind you, I had no qualifications at all. I had no certificate. All I had was my O-level results, and also that was all. So that meant that the jobs I was going to get were the minor jobs. I sent those applications, however, most of them were not replied to. The ones that I got lucky and got a reply, they told me they're not hiring at the moment. And I remember I was frustrated, thinking to myself that what am I going to do in these 8 months? Because I can't stay here looking my mom in the face. I can't stay here. I can't ask for help because of body, one of my sisters working in the same town, so I requested to go and stay with her. She accepted. Not advertised, it's no joke. It takes a lot of confidence. I remember one supermarket I went to, I gave in my application and they scolded me. They asked me, who told you you're hiring? We did not put an advert, we don't need any workers. And they basically insulted me. I've just used nice words. But I did not give up. I continued applying. I remember, I think I applied in all the supermarkets in town. None gave me the job. And then God came through for me. As I was at home, a friend of mine calls and tells me that Lucky, they're advertising a job somewhere at a restaurant. Are you able to work? I was like, of course. I celebrated. Because that is what I wanted. That is what I was looking for. When she told me, I went there immediately and they asked me a few questions. Who are you? What your levels of school, everything. I answered and they gave me a job. That was how I got my first job. I went there and worked for 1 month, but in that month it was also hell in its own. Because restaurants, you meet a lot of people, especially men, who sexualize you. There is a lot of sexualizing in the restaurants. Who want to touch you, who want to do all sorts of things. And that is a life that I wasn't raised in. And that is something I did not want to entertain. So I worked for a month, they paid me my money and I left. As soon as I had left, my uncle calls me and tells me that he has some work to do at his office. I was really excited, but also nervous. And at some point, it was bittersweet because me going back to the city meant that I was going back to his house, and that was where the trauma began from. However, I was the one paying the school fees, and I was also going to be earning some money that was better than the one I was getting at the restaurant. So I decided to go back to Kampala. I worked for the months that were remaining, and thank God they got done, and I reported to the university. Before I reported to the university, the results came back, and I performed really well. I was so proud of myself. I was proud of myself because I passed with flying colors. And luckily enough, I was admitted on government sponsorship where I did not have to pay tuition. Everything was catered for except the rent. So I had to look rent for myself. So the months went by and I was excited to go to university. And when the time came, I reported. I did. And I got my sponsorship. And that is where I am right now. I'm really grateful. I'm in my last year at university. I do not know where the world is going to take me, but I believe I'm destined for greatness. I believe that every struggle I have passed through was to I believe that every trauma, every truth is not something that will define me. And I'm not defined by traumas. I know I'm going to be destined for greatness. I'm going to impact lives. I'm going to be that person. The food that I used to beg for, the leftovers that I used to eat, I'll be able to buy a meal for myself. Even though at campus, I've not talked about my campus journey, but it has also been quite challenging, but enjoyable. I've enjoyed every single moment here at campus. I think university has actually healed a part of me that was broken before. I have made great friends. I've made great opportunities. I've made great connections. I have healed myself. That is one. And for everyone out there, I want to tell you that it is not anyone's job to heal your traumas. It is you yourself to work on them. It is you to decide that this is no longer the life I want to live. It is you to decide that the traumas don't define you. It is you to make that decision. The day I realized that, the day I accepted that, yes, I'm a disadvantaged kid. Yes, I don't have a dad. Yes, he's there, deadbeat. Yes, my mom is not rich. Yes, I've passed through this and that. But that does not mean that I'm a failure. It is part of life. It is a process that I was meant to pass through. And God made me pass through all those things because He knew I would manage them and come out victorious. Look at me now. So everyone out there, if you struggle, I don't know the struggles you have, but always have a positive mindset. Always remind yourself that you are destined for greatness. Always know that the job you are praying for is going to come. Always know that the studies you're praying for are going to be passed, you're going to pass. Always know that if your family is not doing it, is going to know that anything you are praying for, anything that is worrying you, anything that you are worried is going to come out great and is going to exceed your expectations. You have no control over what happens, but you have control of how you can manage it. Have a positive mindset. Remember that if you are not alone, seek help. If you feel like me, because I had those bad thoughts, if you feel like you have those thoughts, seek medical help, go for counseling, and thank you so much everyone for watching. I love you. Bye.